One of my fascinations in the Holy Bible is Messianic prophecy. And I know, when I first became a Christian, I had all of your dad's books. Just
Oh, wow.
a library full of evidence that demands a verdict, the resurrection factor, and all of those books. And
That's great.
one of the things that really fascinated me really early on was Messianic prophecy, the fact that Jesus was prophesied in the Old Testament, his coming, death, burial, resurrection, so on and so forth. And when I began to research and investigate it for myself, I actually found, what your dad was saying in those books was absolutely true. So for our viewers today who perhaps have never heard of Messianic prophecy, could you explain maybe what it is and share some Messianic prophecies with us?
Yeah, so prophecy is something that's foretold ahead of time and then fulfilled at a later date. Now, the gap between the Old Testament and the New Testament, the chronology of what's covered, the Old Testament ends and there's about 4 centuries before the New Testament begins. But we also have Old Testament documents. The Dead Sea Scrolls were copied before the time of the New Testament, at least some of them dated earlier than the New Testament documents were written. But one of the translations from the Old Testament Hebrew into Greek was actually about 2 centuries before the time of the New Testament. In other words, we have what's called the Septuagint, translation of the Old Testament before the New Testament was even written. So we can't say this was just added and tweaked later because we know it was written before the New Testament came on the scene. Now, we have to be careful here because some of the prophecies I think only make sense looking back. I mean, Jesus in Luke 24 said to the 2 disciples when he's walking, he says, "Don't you know that the Old Testament spoke of me?" Meaning that they should have seen something in the Old Testament fulfilled in the person of Jesus. But it was only when he came back and appeared himself that they could look back and go, oh my goodness, now my eyes are open and I see it. But I think there are some prophecies that are more clear specifically that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem.
Yeah.
We see this specifically prophesied, and that was a small town. There was not a lot of people that were there, and that's why Herod is trying to kill all the babies, as we see in the beginning of the Gospels, because he distinctly knows the Messiah is coming from there. So that's an example. And some people would list hundreds, some would list dozens. There's some debate about exactly which ones are understood in reverse and moving forward. But hands down, we agree that there's at least minimally some examples of both of those.
Yeah. I love to study the early rabbis as well to see their views on these prophecies. And when you compare them to the Christian interpretation, they're very similar, very similar. Of course, many of them wouldn't assign them to Jesus, but they would certainly assign them to the coming Messiah. And Isaiah 53, for instance, is one of those prophecies that many of the early rabbis agreed upon the fact that this was the Messiah who was to come and die for the sins of Israel. So, yeah, very fascinating.